It's as strong as a spell. I'll never tell. Yeah, I like you, that's for sure.
Hi guys, welcome back to Exmo Lex. As I've done with this channel in the past, today I want to share more Mormon exit stories with you. These are stories that viewers have sent in to have their story read aloud on the channel. When I was starting to have my faith crisis and when I was on my journey out of the church, these sorts of things were really what kept me going. And of course, we all know and love Mormon stories. I myself was on Mormon stories and I had a great experience, but not everybody can dedicate 5 to 6 hours to listen to one exit story. So if you're looking for some ex-Mormon content, but maybe don't want to listen to something quite so long today, this is a good place to be. This first story was sent in by somebody that's only 14 years old. That might make it the youngest Mormon story I've shared. I was born into the church, taught the truths, baptized, all of the things. Now I'm 14 years old and don't believe any of it. I somehow came across your videos probably a little less than a year ago. At first I wasn't sure about the whole idea because I had never really been a Molly Mormon, especially as a teenager. I didn't think that homosexual relationships were terrible, my family swore on occasion, and I didn't really care or know about the misogyny. Now, as I've looked into it and watched your videos, I think the church is based on lies. When my grandma passed away in May, her funeral and viewing was all about the plan of salvation and how she's peaceful and not hurting anymore. At this point, I knew the church wasn't true, but it didn't hit me until then. All of the assurance I had about seeing her again was gone. So while others were just saying, "See you soon," I was saying a real goodbye to one of my favorite people ever. I can't imagine being worried about whether I was worthy enough to be in the same kingdom as her. First of all, I'm really sorry about the loss of your grandmother. I've actually been dreading that myself, losing one of my grandparents, because it will be the first time that I've had to process a loss like that without the church, and I'm not really sure how that's gonna go, how that grieving process is gonna go. Also, when you talked about how her funeral was all about the plan of salvation, that's a very Mormon thing to do. Every Mormon funeral I've ever been to has been the same, where it seemed like a lot of it was really more about the church than it was about the person who had passed. I actually did a video about that a while ago. If you want to check it out, I'll leave a link in the description. But yeah, I feel like it's already difficult to process a loss like that, and when everybody around you is like so sure that this isn't a forever goodbye, they're gonna see that person again, I'm sure that was more difficult, so I'm so sorry you had to go through that. My mom is usually the strict parent, especially about the church. About a week ago, my ward had a temple trip to do baptisms. I already hated going to the holiest place on earth, but I really hoped I could stay home because I had a trumpet lesson with my grandpa on the other side of the family. I've been taking lessons for almost 2 years and I've grown close with him, so I love going up to their house. When my mom mentioned the temple trip, I said how much I wanted to stay home. She started giving a speech of how this isn't a choice. Wow. I guess my parents probably would have said something similar, but probably not in quite so blunt of terms. I didn't really feel like I had a choice most of the time when it came to church activities and church things, but I don't think they ever told me specifically this is not a choice. The church is everything, especially the temple. This made me realize how I always had to give up something like my favorite thing in the entire week just to go do something I didn't believe in. This also reminded me of how your mom said that family is more important than religion. It made me sad thinking about how my agency and my happiness come second. My mom cares more about doing temple work than her own kids. Another thing that is annoying is that I can't watch any YouTube videos because Satan is trying to trap me. I can't have any type of social media for another 3 years because I'm too insecure. Another thing I've noticed is that whenever I'm struggling, my mom just says that I should pray. I just need to believe that Heavenly Father will make everything better and that He has a plan. As a teenager with lots of self-doubt, this is extremely damaging. Even though I've been dealing with drama and fake friends my whole life and have thought about taking my own life, I just need to pray and it'll be better. At times, this even just seems like a cop-out so she doesn't actually have to have a solution. I really hope that one day when I'm older, I can tell them the truth of how their parenting has had a very bad effect on me and that my mental health is a lot better knowing that the ridiculously high standards in the church don't have to be met. Knowing that the church is a bunch of shit has let me come to terms with the fact that women in the church are not valued. I am my own person and can be whatever I want, that I don't have to constantly be perfect, and has helped me grow as a person. Looking at this as a parent, I really feel like that by 14 years old, if your child is telling you point blank that they don't believe in your religion, that they don't want to participate in the rituals or participate in these sorts of activities, you should be listening to them. Honestly, with somebody that's 14, I really feel like the more that they're pressured to do something like this that they don't want to do, the more they're going to swing the other way. So your parents probably aren't doing themselves any favors by being so strict about it. 14 years old is still so young and you still have so much growing to do. So I hope that you're able to continue to process this in the best way possible and that you're able to try to keep a good relationship with your parents, because the honest truth is, I know there are things that my parents did that were very unhealthy for my mental health, but I also realized that they were doing the best they had with what they knew at the time, and I really appreciate them trying. The reality is that if I hadn't found my way out of the church, I would be doing the same thing to my kids, and so I don't want to judge my parents too harshly for just doing the only thing they knew how to do. So I hope that you're able to keep that in mind and try to keep the peace with them as much as possible. But I think that you're really brave for being 14 years old and already taking a step back and trying to be your own person and be independent and think for yourself. I have been a member of the church for my entire life. As you often say, the doctrine of the church was taught to me as a fact, not a belief nor choice. I had what many would see as the perfect Mormon childhood, perfectly indoctrinated from such a young age that by the time I could really make my own choices, I essentially indoctrinated myself. I had my own small rebellions growing up, but I pushed myself extremely hard to live the gospel perfectly. I studied hard, went to early morning seminary daily, went to all activities, taught lessons, gave talks, and took my youth callings very seriously. The church was my life. Same. There was never a point that going on a mission wasn't the plan. I didn't necessarily want to. I felt pressure to go. From an extremely young age, I remember people asking me my plans and my parents would answer for me. She wants to go to BYU and go on a mission. So that was my plan. The church was the ever-present influence in every aspect of my family's lives, the core of everything we believed and did. There's a lot of trauma that came from growing up like this, but I won't go into that. I do not blame my parents for any of this. They did their best according to what they knew, raising us the way they were raised. Gotta love generational trauma. I eventually went to BYU-I and loved it. It felt good because it's what I knew. After 2 years, I went on my mission. Honestly, I'm not sure how I got through it. I think my mission snapped me out of the trance I had been in for my entire life. On my mission, I experienced an entirely new type of trauma that opened my eyes to what the world is really like. Those 18 months slowly chipped away at my shelf and absolutely destroyed me physically, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. A month after I got home, COVID lockdown started, and within another month, my shelf had shattered. Over the past 2 years, I have studied the truth of the church, watched yours and others' videos, finally truly listened to my sister's stories that led them out, and listened adamantly to Mormon stories and other resources. I have learned and grown and become much more confident and finally come to terms with being bisexual. But I've also become increasingly unsafe because of this growth. By the time I decided I no longer believed in the church, it felt too late to transfer from BYU-I. You know that it can be nearly impossible to do so successfully or effectively. My mental health has deteriorated as a result of constantly feeling like I have to hide who I am. I have been questioned, prodded, judged, and pressured for years while just trying to make it out of here safely. I am now in the last stretch of my time here, but it has become more difficult to hide my beliefs, and I have felt increased pressure from my roommates, friends, and even my bishop. I desperately wish that BYU-I was a safer place for people like me. Don't we all? My God. Because yes, I knew what I was getting into when I came here, but I could never have known that my life and beliefs would change so drastically over the course of my time here. The church has created a university that keeps you in on threat of losing everything you've worked so hard for. It's not only unfair to those of us that struggle spiritually, but I have seen it literally destroy lives. My anxiety has become debilitating and my depression overwhelming to the point that my grades suffer. If the church really cared about the students attending their schools, they would work to create an atmosphere where we felt safe to open our minds to learn, and they wouldn't force teachings that make people like me uncomfortable and anxious. People say BYU is a blessing to members to gain an affordable education, but it really just feels like a factory to create the perfect Mormon robots. Wow, I could not have said that better myself. There is a newfound freedom that comes from letting go of the pressures of the gospel, but there is also great loss. Loss of faith that you relied on for years, loss of confidence in your decisions and conscience when you were always told stories of the Spirit, a loss of a future you had once longed for. Safety seems more difficult to obtain, and every encounter becomes an undercover operation. You lose the freedom to truly express yourself and instead have to lie to feel safe. When my parents found out about my beliefs, they told me not to burn the bridge by removing my name, labeled it a temporary faith crisis, and invalidated the years I spent living the gospel by saying I was spending too much time researching the bad things instead of the good. Wow, I feel that. I get comments like that all the time. saying that I just need to read the scriptures more or study the gospel more or learn the doctrine better and stop reading, you know, anti-Mormon stuff or critical things. And it's like, I spent my whole life reading stuff from the church. I spent my whole life reading the gospel. It's very invalidating to have somebody just pretend that that doesn't matter. My best friend, who I thought would be the most understanding of my situation, told me that my desire to leave was dramatic. I wish I could say that I believed the church could fix these issues, but I really believe that they rely on these methods to retain power. Your content has been such a huge comfort to me over the last few years. I have had to find solace online in order to remind myself that I am not alone. Thank you for having the confidence to share your journey and taking the time to do so. You are touching so many lives and are a huge part of so many of our journeys towards safety. Wow. To the person who shared this, thank you so much for doing so. You shared your journey so eloquently, and I think that you are brave and incredible for doing that. For everybody who's watching, if you felt touched by these stories or you related to them in any way or you just enjoyed them, please make sure to leave a comment of support for these people. I'm sure that they will read the comments, and I'm sure it will mean so much to them to see support. I'm really, really grateful that we've been able to build up this community where we can share our stories together, whether anonymously or not. I really feel like sharing our stories is one of the most powerful ways that we can help other people who are going through something similar. Never let anybody tell you to be quiet about sharing your story. It happened to you. It's your life. Share your stories. If you would like to share your story, you can send a link to my email, exmolex@gmail.com. However, just to be totally transparent with you guys, I've been super behind on emails lately. I was struggling with some health issues, and then all of my kids started school, and it turns out with 4 of them, that makes for a really, really busy time. But I'm trying to get back on top of it, so if you want to share your story for another video like this, send an email to exmolex@gmail.com with this heading saying something like exiting the religion story. Thank you so much for watching, and a special thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. You guys are the best. Extra special thank you to Craig Call, Doug Davis, Megan Haycock, Noble Monster Comics, Richard Kaner, Tans, and the Exmo Candle Company for supporting at the Demon tier on my Patreon. You guys are the best. If you would like to support the channel and the work that goes into it, there are links to do so in the description below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!
Strong as a spell, I'll never tell. Yeah, I like you, that's for sure. Never have to close the door. Been a long time, a year before.